bring it a little bit closer to home. Who uses Waze here? Okay, great, about 25, 30%. So what is Waze? What problem does it solve for you? Who wants to say again? Tells me where the cops are. Okay, not the first answer I wanted, but it is true. It is true. Tells me where the accidents are. Very good. So the police and the accidents are, let's call them constraints. What else does it tell you? The best route to get to where I'm going, and what else does it give me? It gives me my ETA. It tells me, no kidding, this is the best route to go, and this is the ETA, and boy, you can bet on that ETA, right? And it knows the constraints, or it knows the constraints. How are the constraints provided to you? Generally speaking, how are the constraints, how are the police, where the police are given to you? How does it know yesterday there was roadkill on the way to JFK for me? The users. So in the book, The Second Machine Age by Andrew McAfee, he said the first machine age was the mechanization of muscle, which came about by the steam engine. The second machine age is, in my words, the mechanization of the brain. And what he's saying is there's technologies out there today where users, crowdsourcing, feed information into each other. That's how Waze is doing this. So it knows all the position of the cars, and it knows the capacity and the routes to be able to get to the destination. It actually reroutes or makes recommendations of different routes, but you feed information into this device that allows you to be able to know where the constraints are. So why don't we have something like this in the airplane? Is another story. Why can't we have this same kind of capability? There's some technologies that are getting there. I think ForeFlight, I heard, is one of them. But why can't we have something similar for aviation? So one benefit is I know where the police are. Another benefit is I know my ETA, I know the quickest way to get to my destination. But there's unintended consequences as well. In a recent book by Steve Case, who is the co-founder of AOL, what he's saying is these technologies now are giving rebirth to some of our second cities, like Pittsburgh and like Nashville. That's pretty cool. In fact, another technology that's doing that is Uber. So who uses Uber? About the same, number one, probably the same people and the same percentage of the audience. What problem does Uber solve for you? Ease of payment, very good. What else does it do? So I was in a restaurant pouring out about 2 years ago, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna be soaking wet because I'm gonna have to hail a taxi. Craig Fuller, he said, no, I got it. 30 seconds later, car pulls up and we pull away. So it allows me to be able to more effectively go to where I want to go with almost no delay. What's another benefit of Uber? My daughter was going to college in LA and she said, Dad, you know what else Uber is doing? So she Ubers everywhere. She Ubers everywhere. And then she said, you know what another benefit of Uber is? In LA, the nightlife in LA has been significantly enhanced. Now she heard it on the streets in LA, but then the New York Times writes an article saying Uber has revitalized the city. Because now more people are going into the city because of this technology. Big data, predictive analytics, crowdsourcing as well. Let's get back to what we do. What airport system is this? It's New York. Over what period of time are these flight tracks? What's your guess? 5 a.m. So it's a 24-hour period. This is how many planes are flying through New York. Think about this. Over the next 10 to 15 years, 10 to 20 million additional people, depending on the forecast, want to come into the New York area. We can't even handle the people today who want to come into New York. And yet that many additional people want to come into New York. Think about the effect New York has on the system today. For 20 delayed days a year are responsible for 67% of the total delays in the NAS. 20 delayed days in New York alone are responsible for almost 70% of the delays in the national airspace today. Think about that. And another 20 to 30 million more people want to come in. Next slide. This is the GDP of each of the major cities. Look how much is in New York alone. And think about the impact if we can't get those people to come into New York over the coming years. What's going to happen to that money? Well, many people say it's not going to go to another part of the country. It's probably going to go overseas if we don't have the capacity to take the people. 10 years ago, the maritime port of Hong Kong was #1 in the world. Today, as reported by the Wall Street Journal about 3 months ago, it's #5 because it didn't properly plan for the capacity. What happens if that happens in New York? Now, I'm fully aware of where I am, and when I served in the Marine Corps, I knew the Texans' view of the world. So the next slide, I realized this is in fact how you see, or Texans view the rest of the country. You gotta know where you are. So listen, there is an explosion of data. What we're saying is data in of itself is meaningless. Predictive analytics is just a buzzword. Who knows what the Internet of Things really means, right? To us, to you, to those we serve, it's solving a problem. And so that's what we think is the essence of the Moneyball of aviation. As Brad Pitt said, what's the problem we're really trying to solve? And then with experts and data, we can help to solve it. So let me tell you a little bit about the company. You probably got a good feel for it now. So we're a business intelligence company powered by this huge database of historical, real-time, if a plane's landing in Japan, in real time, we see that plane landing in Japan using our own sensors. And then predictive information as well, so 16 hours in advance, what's really going to happen. Huge customer network, so business aviation, all the leading airlines in North America, over 60 airports, business aviation organizations, sharing information in real time to be able to better plan the operation. And what we're focused on, next slide, is what are the constraints, what are those things that relate to aviation that we can help to remove, that we can target. Because if we can make it more predictable, ideally we can make it more affordable, and ideally it's a better passenger experience, it's a better pilot experience, and we can get people to fly more. That's what our mission is. It's about a $60 billion problem globally as it relates to the cost of delays, diversions, and cancellations. So those are the inconveniences we're targeting to be able to help make it a better experience across the full spectrum of flight.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight four-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
So we're getting this data now from partially and largely from our own sensors. So these are stationary secondary surveillance radar. So the radar purists in the audience will say, well, is that really a radar? The guy who actually invented TCAS invented our system. It was originally designed for the military, for military TCAS capabilities. So it's listening to the mode A, mode C, mode S, ADS-B, ACARS. So we had ADS-B out 10, 13 years ago, 6 years before the government started putting out the ADS-B sensors. So we're getting this all in real time, and we're storing it, and then we're pulling in owner-operator information, we're pulling in information from the airports, from the airlines, from the government. The government's providing even more and more information today to be able to help solve these problems. We put the capability on a screen, on a device that allows us to be able to, if I want to reduce diversions, for example, the airlines use our capabilities to say, where's the plane, how long before you get to a hold, how long are you going to be in the hold, and as a result, what time are you going to be on the ground. So what I want to be able to do is today, a pilot gets an effective further clearance, for example, they see how much fuel they have in the plane, and then they say, listen, I'm going to have to divert. Where in fact, if they know the real ETA, the probability of diversion drops. We do this in conjunction with the dispatchers, in conjunction with the airlines to be able to provide that capability. And then, very importantly, we have this center of excellence, people who came from business aviation, came from the airports, came from the airlines, people who ran the FAA, the Northeast for the FAA, who allow us to be able to say, this is more important than that. Good data combined with experience, we believe, is the answer. So, as a way to demonstrate how what we do can make a difference, this is a major airline's prediction of what time their planes are going to land in aggregate at one hub over a 1 month period. On top is their probability of an accurate landing within 5 minutes, and on the bottom is within 10 minutes. So what was Uber doing for us, or what was Waze doing for us? It was giving us a good ETA. Under any conditions, for example, and when you see the spikes, that's bad weather. That's saying the pilot is trying to guess what time he or she is going to land, or the aircraft is saying this is what time I'm going to land, but you have to know what everybody else is doing. You have to be able to know what time everybody else is landing. You want to know what the runway configuration is, if there's holds and the like. That's what we're doing. So this was the airline's best guess as to what time the aircraft was going to land. In the next slide, this shows how we remove the variability. This shows that Passur is almost always right in his prediction of what the plane's going to do. And you can imagine the goodness that this can create for an awful lot of different organizations, including you as a pilot, that says, if I'm flying to the northeast and I'm intending to go to HPN, is Teterboro a better route for me? And what's the ETA to Teterboro versus the ETA for HPN, for example? And ideally, what's the ETA on the ground as well to the ultimate destination? And how about having that all available to me instantly on my device? So this same guy who wrote The Second Machine Age, another plug for Andrew McAfee, he interviewed me on what we were doing. Everybody hears about big data for Amazon, right, and for Google. And what he said was, people want to hear in real industries, how is big data being applied? So there was an article written about how our ability to mine all this data in real time and to be able to know what time our plane's really going to land. So we were written up as a case study in big data in Harvard Business Review. So let's get now even a little closer to home. This is the number of people who are aggregating information, a lot of it coming from Passur, that are available to that commercial pilot. And the number of people that are available to you when you're flying, and how do you get access to information? And it shouldn't be that the general aviation pilot is without the same information as the commercial aviation pilot, the same information that's available to the dispatcher, and frankly, the same information that's in our databases. So one way to visually depict it, on top is this rich information. You see it goes off to the commercial people very effectively. In some cases, it actually gets up to the flight deck. And on the right-hand side, very little is getting out to the general aviation pilot. I'm aware that you can contract with different services from Honeywell and Boeing and the like to be able to get a little bit better information. But we feel this revolution should include information that's getting to the general aviation pilot as well. So you have some of the same challenges. I was flying in 02. I was having my friend fly in 02, push-pull out of Dulles a year or two ago. And he asked for this different route, and he's thinking, why am I flying this route? He sees our historical data. He sees under the exact same conditions, there's a much more effective way to fly to HPN from Dulles. So why don't I have access to that information? And then when we take off, if there's delays on route, if there's holding patterns and the like, all that happens to you is you get delayed. But wouldn't you really want to know what's really happening in real time ahead of you? And what's the ETA to Teterboro? Because it could be, rather than landing at HPN, Teterboro may have been a much better location. And if I actually had the ground time to our ultimate destination at HPN, that's the kind of information we feel we should have available to us. Now, the question is, how do we unlock that? But we know we have the information. There's no reason why you could not crowdsource, just like with Uber, and just like with Waze, why you could not crowdsource your conditions as well. So these are some of the kinds of problems we like to be able to tackle. So what we are doing today, we're taking an awful lot of information from the flight deck that's going into our database. So position information, and for some of the airlines, what's the fuel on board and the like, which is very important for some of the different decisions. And then what we're doing in some cases via ACARS, and maybe tomorrow through other means like Wi-Fi, pushing that real-time information into the flight deck to allow you to be able to make better decisions. So at the end of the day, we do believe there's a revolution in thinking, most importantly. We think there are people who are really challenging the system. We think data combined with experience can help solve a lot of problems. We think there's significant issues that have to be addressed. What's going to happen in New York? What's going to happen to the country if we don't tackle these capacity issues for New York? And so we believe that next, as I mentioned earlier, if you can measure it, you can enhance it. And what we ask is, in this case, for example, this is a write-up. Remember I told you that author from the Wall Street Journal who said, it's going to be a disaster. This was the article he wrote afterwards about the work that was done at JFK. And I actually went up to him and I said, I got to tell you, I've never seen a piece be so complimentary of a company and of the Port Authority and the airlines as you did this. And he said, I was so critical of the system. of the Port Authority beforehand, saying it was going to be a disaster, I felt it was my obligation to say that went really well. And how many times do you see reporters writing that? With all due respect to reporters. But it was a wonderful success. We believe this is an example of what happens with this revolution of challenging things. So in the next slide, let's stop doing things the same old way. Let's stop looking at it as just a massive aircraft, and it's the way it's always been. And just with Moneyball, we think we can bring about great advancements. And again, what can be measured can be enhanced. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Aero-TV is brought to you by
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.